1. Let me tell you about this awesome 1984 Ford Bronco 2 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $5,500. This first-year Bronco 2 is a real gem, and I'm stoked to share the deets with you. Now, I gotta be real with you. This ride's got some miles on it, but don't let that scare you off. The odometer's showing 100,000 miles, but it's rolled over and broken, so we're not entirely sure of the exact mileage. But hey, that's part of the charm with these classic SUVs, right? This brown beauty is rocking a 6-cylinder engine, manual transmission, and 4-wheel drive. Perfect for those off-road adventures. The seller's been taking good care of it, passing Massachusetts state inspections in both 2022 and 2023. Plus, it's currently registered and running, which is always a big plus for a vehicle of this vintage. Now let's talk about the good stuff. The interior's in good shape, and the sellers put a ton of work into this bad boy. We're talking reconditioned rims, new shocks, fresh brakes all around, a rebuilt cooling system, and even rebuilt locking 4x4 hubs. The engine's gotten some love too, with a rebuilt carb and a bunch of new parts. But I gotta keep it real with you. It's not perfect. The body and frame are solid overall, but there are some areas of concern that the seller's willing to point out during inspection. The frame's got some surface rust and flaking, but no holes, which is a relief. Here's the kicker. The seller's even throwing in the option to buy a 1989 Bronco 2 parts vehicle for an extra $1,500. That's a sweet deal if you're looking to keep this classic on the road for years to come. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This Bronco 2 needs some TLC. But for the right enthusiast, this could be an awesome project and a chance to own a piece of Ford history. If you're into these first-gen Bronco 2s and don't mind putting in some work, this could be the ride for you. 2. We're checking out a real classic, a 1974 Lincoln Mark IV that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $8,900. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. This isn't a pristine showroom piece, but it's got some serious potential for the right buyer. Let's dive into the details. This Mark IV has been given a bit of a facelift, converted to look like the '76 Cartier edition. It's an older restoration, so it's not fresh off the paint booth, but it still presents nicely overall. The seller's honest about its condition, listing it as fair, which is refreshing to see. One of the coolest things about this Lincoln is its history. It's coming from an estate sale and is only on its second owner. Even better, it's got documented 38,000 original miles. That's incredibly low for a car of this vintage, and it's a big selling point for collectors. Now I've got to keep it real with you. This car needs some work. The seller's upfront about that, which I appreciate. The biggest issue seems to be the headliner, which needs replacing. But here's the good news. New visors and a new headliner are included in the sale. That's a nice touch that'll save the new owner some hassle and expense. The Mark IV comes with a clean title and an automatic transmission, which is what you'd expect from a luxury cruiser like this. It's listed as a sedan, but remember, these Mark IVs were actually massive two-door coupes, real land yachts that epitomize 1970s American luxury. Look, this Lincoln isn't perfect. It's going to need some TLC to bring it back to its full glory. But for the right enthusiast who loves these 70s luxury boats and doesn't mind putting in some elbow grease, this could be a really cool project. With its low original mileage and interesting Cartier conversion, it's got the potential to be a real head-turner at car shows. So, if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car with some unique features and don't mind a bit of a project, this 1974 Lincoln Mark IV might just be the ride for you. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it where you want it to be. 3. We're diving into a real piece of American automotive history, a 1976 AMC Hornet that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $5,350. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. This one's a bit of a mixed bag, but it could be a cool project for the right person. Let's start with the good stuff. This Hornet's got 92,562 original miles on the odometer, which isn't too shabby for a car pushing 50 years old. The unibody and suspension are all original, which is pretty neat if you're into preserving automotive history. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. The original engine has been swapped out for a used 258 CI engine from a 1983 AMC Eagle. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Those inline sixes are known for their durability, but it does mean the actual engine mileage is unknown. It's also worth noting that this swap changes the character of the car a bit from its original spec. One thing that might give some buyers pause is the missing title. That's definitely something you'll want to factor into your decision and budget, as getting a new title can be a hassle depending on your state's laws. On the plus side, it's got an automatic transmission, which makes it an easy driver if you're looking for a classic daily cruiser. The Hornet was known for being a practical, no-nonsense car in its day, and that character still shines through. Look, I've got to be honest with you. This Hornet isn't a pristine, numbers-matching collector's piece. It's got its quirks and challenges, from the engine swap to the missing title. But for the right enthusiast who loves AMC history and doesn't mind a bit of a project, this could be a really cool car. The Hornet played a significant role in AMC's lineup in the 70s, and they're not as common to see on the roads these days. If you're into preserving a piece of automotive underdog history and have some mechanical skills, or are willing to learn, this 76 Hornet could be a fun and relatively affordable way to get into classic car ownership. Just remember, you're buying a project here, not a turnkey show car. But with some work and love, this Hornet could really shine and turn some heads at your local car meet. So if you're up for the challenge and love the idea of cruising in a piece of AMC history, this 76 Hornet might just be the ticket. 4. We're checking out a real piece of American luxury. A 1970 Cadillac DeVille convertible that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,000. Now I've got to be straight with you folks. This isn't a perfect show car, but it could be a sweet ride for the right buyer. Let's dive into the details. This big, beautiful Caddy is packing an 8-cylinder engine, which is exactly what you want in a land yacht like this. The odometer shows 66,000 miles, but it's rolled over, so we're not sure of the actual mileage. That's pretty common for cars of this vintage, though. The seller's been putting some work into this DeVille, which is great to see. We're talking a new water pump, fuel lines, gas tank, and a freshly rebuilt carb with an Edelbrock intake. That's a solid start for anyone looking to cruise in classic style. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. This car needs some TLC. The seller's upfront about that, which I appreciate. The paint is described as a 10-footer, meaning it looks good from a distance, but up close you'll notice some issues. One side has newer paint than the other, and there are some bubbles coming through, which could indicate rust underneath. There's also a crack in the dash, which isn't unusual for a car of this age. On the plus side, the power top works, as do all the windows, though they're a bit slow. The seats have been reupholstered at some point, which is nice. And most importantly, it runs, drives, and stops well, according to the seller. One thing to note is that this Caddy is being sold with a previous registration and bill of sale from Rhode Island, but no title. That's something you'll need to factor into your decision and budget, as getting a new title can be a process depending on your state's laws. Look, I've got to be honest. This isn't a pristine show-ready classic. It's a driver that needs some work. But for the right enthusiast who loves these big, bold American convertibles from the 70s and doesn't mind putting in some elbow grease, this could be a really cool project. At $12,000, you're not getting a perfect car, but you are getting a piece of American luxury history with some recent mechanical work done. If you're up for the challenge and love the idea of cruising with the top down in a classic Cadillac, this 70 DeVille could be a fun ride. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it where you want it to be. 5. We're checking out a 1985 Buick Regal that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $3,500. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. This isn't a pristine show car, but it could be a cool project for the right person. Let's dive into what we know about this Regal. The seller describes it as a running and driving project car in fair condition. That's a good start. It means you've got a solid foundation to work with. It's got a clean title, which is always a plus when you're dealing with older vehicles. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. This car needs some work. The seller's upfront about it being a project car, which I appreciate. One of the main issues is that it's missing a back seat, That's something you'll need to factor into your budget and plans if you're looking to make this a fully functional ride. The Regal comes with an automatic transmission, which is typical for these mid-80s Buicks. It's listed as a sedan, but remember, the Regal was actually a mid-size coupe in 1985, so that might be a mistake in the listing. The seller mentions they're only interested in trading for 5x5 wheels or cash, so they seem pretty firm on the price. They're also asking for serious inquiries only, which is fair enough. Look, I've got to be honest, this isn't a turnkey classic ready for cruise night. It's a project that needs some TLC. But for the right enthusiast who loves these 80s G-body Buicks and doesn't mind putting in some work, this could be a really cool car to bring back to life. The 1985 Regal is from an interesting era in Buick's history. It's got that classic boxy 80s style, and with some work, it could be a real head-turner. Plus, at $3,500, it's a relatively affordable entry point into classic car ownership. Just remember, you're buying a project here, not a finished product. You'll need to budget for that missing back seat and probably some other repairs and upgrades along the way. But if you're up for the challenge and love the idea of cruising in a piece of 80s American automotive history, this 85 Regal might just be the ticket. 6. We're checking out a real piece of 70s American muscle, a 1976 Chevrolet Monte Carlo that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $7,000 or best offer. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks, this isn't a perfect show car, but it's got some potential for the right buyer. Let's dive into the details. This Monte Carlo is packing an 8-cylinder engine, which is exactly what you want in a big, bold cruiser like this. The odometer's showing 142,000 miles, which is a fair amount of road time for a car of this vintage. But hey, that just means it's been loved and driven. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. The seller lists the condition as fair, so we're not talking about a pristine museum-quality ride here. But there are some definite positives. The seller mentions a beautiful custom paint job, which could be a real head-turner if done well. They also say it sounds great and doesn't smoke, which is always good news for an older engine. The interior is described as decent, which probably means it's showing its age, but still serviceable. The seller is upfront about the car needing some TLC, so you should be prepared to put in some work if you decide to take this Monte Carlo home. On the plus side, it's got a clean title, which is always a relief when dealing with classic cars. The automatic transmission is typical for these mid-70s cruisers and should make for easy driving. Look, I've got to be honest. This isn't a turnkey classic ready for the show circuit. It's a project that needs some love. But for the right enthusiast who digs these 70s Monte Carlos and doesn't mind putting in some elbow grease, this could be a really cool car to bring back to its former glory. The 1976 Monte Carlo is from a great era in Chevy's history. It's got that classic long hood, short deck styling that defined personal luxury coupes of the time. With some work, it could be a real standout at your local cruise night. At $7,000 or best offer, it's not the cheapest project car out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially if that custom paint job is as nice as the seller suggests. Just remember, you're buying a car that needs some work. But if you're up for the challenge and love the idea of cruising in a piece of 70s American automotive history, this 76 Monte Carlo might just be the ticket. 7. We're checking out a sweet piece of American muscle, a 1980 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $14,000. Now, I've got to tell you, this bird looks like it's ready to fly. Let's dive into the details of this classic Trans Am. We're looking at a rear-wheel drive coupe powered by a beefy 403 cubic inch V8 engine. That's the kind of muscle that'll put a smile on any gearhead's face. The odometer's showing just 60,000 miles, which is pretty low for a car that's over 4 decades old. That suggests this Firebird hasn't been driven into the ground, which is always a good sign. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. The seller lists the condition as good, not excellent or mint, so we're not talking about a perfect showroom quality car here. But there's a lot to like about this Trans Am. First off, it's got T-tops, and the seller specifically mentions no leaks. That's a big deal for T-top cars of this era. They've also put in some work, with new door hinges, a new radio, and new tires. The gray paint looks clean in the photos, and the seller states it's rust-free and has been garage kept under a cover. That's music to any classic car enthusiast's ears. The automatic transmission is typical for these Trans AMs and should make for easy cruising. And let's not forget, this is a clean title car, which is always a relief when dealing with classics. Look, I've got to be honest. At $14,000, this isn't a bargain basement project car. But for a well-maintained, rust-free Trans AM with the big 403 engine, it's not unreasonable either. The seller's firm on no trades, so they seem pretty confident in their price. The 1980 Firebird Trans AM is from a great era in Pontiac's history. It's got that iconic long hood, short deck styling with the screaming eagle on the hood that defined the second-gen Firebirds. This is the kind of car that turns heads at every stoplight and cruise night. Just remember, while this Trans AM sounds like it's in good shape, it's still a 43-year-old car. It might need some TLC here and there, but that's part of the classic car experience. If you're up for some occasional weekend wrenching and love the idea of cruising in a piece of late 70s, early 80s American automotive history, this 80 Firebird Trans AM could be your ticket to muscle car nirvana. 8. We're checking out a real gem, a 1965 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $13,500 or best offer. Now, let me tell you, this isn't just any old car-truck hybrid. This is a piece of American automotive history. Let's dive into the details of this beauty. We're looking at an all-original El Camino in good condition, which is pretty impressive for a vehicle that's pushing 60 years old. Under the hood, you'll find the original 283 V8 engine. That's the kind of power plant that gives you that classic muscle car rumble we all love. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. The odometer's showing 130,000 miles, which is a fair amount of road time. But here's the kicker. The seller says they drive it weekly and on weekends. That's a great sign, folks. It means this El Camino isn't just some garage queen. It's a runner that's still out there doing what it was built to do. The seller describes the condition as good, not excellent or mint. So let's be clear, this isn't a showroom perfect restoration. But for a daily drivable classic, it sounds pretty sweet. It's got a red paint job, which is always eye-catching on these old Chevys, and it's rocking an automatic transmission for easy cruising. One of the coolest things about this El Camino is its versatility. The seller mentions you can drive it all week and on weekends, which really speaks to the unique car-truck design that made the El Camino so popular. Need to haul some stuff? No problem. Want to cruise to the local car meet? You're all set. A big plus is that it's got current tags till 2025, so you won't have to worry about registration for a while. And let's not forget, this is a clean title vehicle, which is always a relief when dealing with classics. Look, I've got to be honest, at $13,500 or best offer, this isn't the cheapest classic out there. But for an all-original, running and driving 65 El Camino, it's not outrageous either. These vehicles have a strong following, and prices have been on the rise. The 1965 El Camino is from a great era in Chevy's history. It's got that iconic mid-60s styling that just screams classic American muscle. This is the kind of ride that turns heads wherever it goes, whether you're hauling lumber or cruising down Main Street. Just remember, while this El Camino sounds like it's in good shape, it's still a 58-year-old vehicle. It might need some TLC here and there, but that's part of the classic car experience. If you're up for some occasional weekend wrenching and love the idea of owning a versatile piece of 60s automotive history, this 65 El Camino could be your ticket to classic car heaven. 9. We're checking out a real gem, a 1968 Ford Ranchero that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $13,800. Now let me tell you, this isn't just any old car-truck hybrid. This is a piece of blue oval history that's sure to turn heads. Let's dive into the details of this beauty. We're looking at a V8-powered Ranchero that the seller says, sounds great. And yes, they used all caps, so you know they mean it. It's sporting an automatic transmission for easy cruising, and it's got power steering to make maneuvering this classic a breeze. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. The odometer's showing just 1,000 miles, which likely means it's rolled over. But don't let that scare you off, because this Ranchero sounds like it's been well cared for. The seller mentions it's been recently serviced with a freshly redone carburetor, fresh fluids, and a tune-up. They've also thrown in a new battery and say all the lights and wipers are working. That's the kind of maintenance you want to see on a classic like this. The Ranchero is rocking a red paint job, which always looks sharp on these old Fords. It's got front disc brakes, which is a nice safety upgrade, and the seller says it's got good tires. They describe it as a pretty car that catches eyes, and I've got to say, I believe them. These 68 Rancheros have a great look that blends muscle car style with pickup practicality. One thing to note, there's no AC, so keep that in mind if you're in a hot climate. But hey, that's just an excuse to cruise with the windows down and enjoy that V8 rumble, right? The seller mentions it's a California car with a clean CA title, which is usually good news when it comes to rust. And now it's located in Mesa, AZ, so it's probably been spared from harsh winters its whole life. Look, I've got to be honest. At $13,800, this isn't the cheapest classic out there. But the seller makes a good point that others at this price are often in worse shape. This one sounds like it's a reliable driver that you could enjoy right away. The 1968 Ranchero is from a great era in Ford's history. It's got that iconic late 60s styling that just screams classic American muscle. This is the kind of ride that turns heads, whether you're hauling stuff in the back or cruising down Main Street. Just remember, while this Ranchero sounds like it's in good shape, it's still a 55-year-old vehicle. It might need some TLC here and there, but that's part of the classic car experience. If you're up for some occasional weekend wrenching and love the idea of owning a versatile piece of 60s automotive history, this 68 Ranchero could be your ticket to classic car heaven. 10. We're diving into a real piece of American luxury, a 1966 Ford Thunderbird that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $10,000. Now let me tell you, this isn't just any old car. This is a slice of 60s automotive elegance that's sure to turn heads. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this T-Bird. We're looking at an all-original beauty powered by the mighty 390 FE V8 engine. That's the kind of power plant that gives you that classic Ford rumble we all love. It's got 135,000 miles on the clock, which is a fair amount for a car of this vintage, but hey, that just means it's been enjoyed over the years. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. This isn't a pristine, show-ready car. The seller describes it as being in good condition, not excellent or mint. They mention a dent in the rear driver's side panel near the trunk, but the good news is they've got a new panel ready to be sanded and installed. That's a nice touch for the next owner. The Thunderbird is sporting a green paint job, which is a classic color for these 60s Luxo cruisers. It's got an automatic transmission, perfect for easy cruising, and it's rear-wheel drive, just as the Ford gods intended. Here's something cool. The seller says they've had some new parts installed by a local shop, and they've even got some extra parts like seat foam and random bits that'll go with the car. They've put on a new carburetor but kept the original, which is great for those who like to keep things stock. One thing to note, the car's currently in storage and only gets driven around the block monthly. That means you'll need to schedule an appointment to view it. But it also suggests it's been kept out of the elements, which is always good for a classic. Look, I've got to be honest. At $10,000, this isn't the cheapest classic out there, but it's not outrageous either for a running, driving 66 Thunderbird. The seller's also open to trading for a good running full-size truck, so there's some flexibility there. The 1966 Thunderbird is from a great era in Ford's history. It's got that iconic 60s styling with those hideaway headlights and that long, elegant profile. This is the kind of car that makes you feel like $1 million just sitting in it. Just remember, while this T-Bird sounds like it's in decent shape, it's still a 57-year-old vehicle. It might need some TLC here and there, but that's part of the classic car experience. If you're up for some occasional weekend wrenching and love the idea of cruising in a piece of 60s American luxury, this 66 Thunderbird could be your ticket to classic car heaven. 11. Let's dive deeper into this 1964 Chevrolet Corvair that's currently for sale on Craigslist for $11,000. This classic American compact car is a real gem for enthusiasts of unique automotive design. The Corvair, with its rear-engine layout, was Chevrolet's answer to the growing popularity of smaller, more efficient cars in the early 1960s. This particular example is finished in an attractive red paint, which, while not original, really makes the car stand out. The repaint job seems to have been done well, giving the Corvair a fresh, eye-catching appearance. Paired with the original red interior, which is described as presentable, it creates a cohesive and appealing look both inside and out. Under the rear deck lid, you'll find the air-cooled, horizontally opposed six-cylinder engine that's a hallmark of the Corvair design. The seller has recently performed a minor tune-up, replacing the plugs, points, rotor, cap, and wires. A compression test showing 150 psi in each cylinder indicates that the engine is in good health, which is crucial for a car of this age. The drivetrain has received significant attention, with a new clutch, pilot bushing, throwout bearing, and input seal. The differential shaft has also been replaced, which should ensure smooth power delivery to the rear wheels. Speaking of wheels, the car now rides on newer radial tires, which will provide better handling and a more comfortable ride compared to period-correct bias-ply tires. The braking system hasn't been neglected either. The front brakes have been overhauled with rebuilt cylinders and resurfaced drums, which should provide confident stopping power. A new muffler has also been installed, likely improving both the exhaust flow and the car's sound. One of the most engaging features of this Corvair is its 4-speed manual transmission. This 4-on-the-floor setup offers a much more involved driving experience compared to an automatic, allowing you to really feel connected to the car's unique rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout. With 65,000 miles on the odometer, this Corvair has clearly been driven and enjoyed, but it's far from worn out. The clean title and the fact that it's been well received at car shows in the Monterey and San Francisco Bay areas suggest that it's been well maintained and appreciated. However, it's important to remember that this is a 59-year-old car. While it's described as being in good condition, potential buyers should expect some quirks and ongoing maintenance needs typical of classic cars. The unique design of the Corvair, while fascinating, can also present some challenges when it comes to repairs and finding parts. In conclusion, this 1964 Chevrolet Corvair represents a unique opportunity to own a piece of American automotive history. Its distinctive design, recent mechanical work, and appealing aesthetics make it an intriguing option for classic car enthusiasts. Whether you're looking for a fun weekend driver or an interesting addition to your collection, this Corvair deserves serious consideration. 12. Let's talk about this 1972 Ford LTD that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,000. Now, I've got to be straight with you. There's a bit of a disconnect between the seller's description and some of the details they've provided, so let's break it down. First off, this big, beautiful boat of a car is sporting a green paint job, which I'm sure looks pretty sharp on this classic full-size sedan. It's packing a V8 under that long hood, paired with an automatic transmission, making it a quintessential American cruiser of its era. The seller claims the car is in excellent condition and like new, which is pretty bold for a vehicle that's over 50 years old, with 167,000 miles on the clock. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's a lot of miles for a car this age to be like new. It's more likely that it's in surprisingly good shape for its age and mileage, but let's temper our expectations a bit. There are a few issues the seller's been upfront about. There's no AC, which isn't uncommon for a car of this vintage, but it's something to consider if you're in a hot climate. The gas meter doesn't work either, so you'll need to keep a close eye on your fuel level the old-fashioned way. On the plus side, the engine runs, which is always good news for a classic car. The title is clean, and the tags are up to date, so you shouldn't have any paperwork headaches if you decide to take this beauty home. Now, $9,000 might seem a bit steep, given the mileage and the few issues mentioned, but prices for classic cars can vary widely based on condition, rarity, and local market. The seller is open to offers, so there might be some wiggle room on the price. In conclusion, this 72 LTD could be a cool piece of automotive history for the right buyer. It's got that classic 70s full-size sedan style that's hard to find these days. Just keep in mind that despite the seller's glowing description, a 50-year-old car with this many miles is bound to need some TLC. If you're interested, I'd recommend a thorough inspection before making an offer. Happy hunting, and keep those classics rolling. 13. Let's dive into this 1975 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray that's currently up for grabs at $7,000. This classic American sports car has quite a story to tell, so buckle up. First off, we're looking at a white T-top coupe with the iconic Stingray styling. Under the hood, you'll find the numbers-matching 350 cubic inch V8 paired with a 350 automatic transmission. This powertrain combo was a popular choice in the mid-70s Vettas, offering a good balance of performance and drivability. Now here's where it gets interesting. This Corvette is a genuine barn find that's been sitting for 28 years. The current owner has had it for 35 years, so you know there's some history here. After its long slumber, the owner has done some work to get it roadworthy again. They've flushed the fuel tank and lines, overhauled the carb, and changed the oils. They've also installed new brake calipers on all four wheels and a new brake master cylinder, which is crucial for safety. The odometer shows 101,000 miles, but the engine received a new factory cam and lifters at 96K, so the bottom end should be in decent shape. The seller says it runs good, which is promising for a car that's been sitting for so long. However, it's not all roses. The car needs a repaint, and there are some cosmetic issues to address. There's a small crack in both the nose panel and the rear panel. The AC needs a Freon charge, the factory AM/FM radio doesn't work, and the fuel gauge isn't accurate. These are all fairly common issues for a car of this age, especially one that's been sitting for nearly 3 decades. On the plus side, it comes with a clean title and even includes a bra, a front-end cover, not the undergarment. The power steering, power brakes, and electric windows are all mentioned, which suggests they're in working order. For $7,000, this Corvette could be a great project for the right enthusiast. It's not a show car by any means, but it seems to have good bones. The numbers-matching drivetrain and the T-top configuration add value, and the fact that it's running after such a long storage period is encouraging. Remember, though, that bringing a barn find back to its former glory can be a costly and time-consuming process. You'll want to factor in the cost of a quality repaint, interior refurbishment, and potentially more mechanical work as you start driving it regularly. In conclusion, this '75 Corvette Stingray is a diamond in the rough. It needs some TLC, but for the Corvette enthusiast looking for a project, this could be a rewarding opportunity to breathe new life into a classic piece of American automotive history. Just be prepared for some elbow grease and additional investment to get it back to its full Stingray glory. 14. All right, Craigslist car enthusiasts, buckle up because we've got a wild one here. We're looking at a 1975 Ford Pinto runabout that's anything but ordinary, currently listed for $6,000. This little brown hatchback has undergone some serious modifications that'll make you do a double take. First off, forget everything you know about the standard Pinto. This one's packing a 302 cubic inch V8 under the hood. That's right, a V8 in a Pinto. Paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, this combo must make this lightweight compact an absolute rocket. The sellers added an Edelbrock intake manifold and 4-barrel carburetor, along with an electronic distributor, which should help that V8 breathe even better. But wait, there's more. This Pinto's got custom side pipes with internal mufflers. I can only imagine the sound this thing makes. It's probably enough to scare the paint off nearby cars. To help handle all that extra power, the owners installed brand new Willwood disc brakes and new front springs. They've even swapped in an Oldsmobile rear end, likely to handle the increased torque from that V8. The odometer shows a mere 44,000 miles, which is impressively low for a 48-year-old car. The seller claims it has a straight body with no accidents, which is great news. They also mention having all the interior parts and the rear seat, though it's not clear if these are currently installed. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. This is a Pinto with a V8. It's an absolutely bonkers combination that throws safety concerns out the window along with fuel efficiency. But for the right enthusiast, this could be the ultimate sleeper car or a wild conversation piece at car shows. There are a few things to consider though. The car has a non-op title, meaning it's not currently registered for road use. You'll need to sort that out if you plan to drive it on public roads. Also, while the seller describes it as in excellent condition, remember that this is a heavily modified 48-year-old car. It's likely to need ongoing maintenance and possibly some sorting out to get everything working harmoniously. In conclusion, this 1975 Ford Pinto is about as far from stock as you can get. It's a unique, wild, and potentially terrifying creation that's sure to turn heads and raise eyebrows wherever it goes. At $6,000, it could be a steal for the right buyer who appreciates its insane power-to-weight ratio and doesn't mind the, shall we say, adventurous nature of driving a V8-swapped Pinto. Just remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and in this case, probably a hefty gas bill too. 15. All right, let's dive deeper into this 1975 Chevrolet Nova that's currently up for sale on Craigslist for $3,200. This classic four-door sedan is a piece of automotive history that's still rolling strong after all these years. Now, I want to be upfront with you. This isn't a show car or a high-performance machine, but it's got a lot going for it as a reliable, everyday classic. The seller is honest about its condition, describing it as a great cruiser around town. With minimal body rust, which is quite impressive for a car of this age, it's clear this Nova has been cared for over the years. The interior has been given some attention too, with new floor carpets and faux leather seat covers freshening things up inside. Under the hood, we've got a smog-exempt inline-six engine. It might not win any drag races, but these engines are known for their reliability and simplicity. The seller mentions it runs and drives great, which is crucial for anyone looking to actually use this car rather than just admire it in a garage. With 85,744 miles on the odometer, this Nova has seen its fair share of road, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for a well-maintained classic. It's got an automatic transmission, which makes it easy to drive in modern traffic, and a clean title, always a good sign when buying a used car. All the lights and turn signals are functional, which is often a pain point with older vehicles. The AC is currently disconnected, but the seller notes it will blow if the belt is reattached. That could be an easy fix for someone with a bit of mechanical know-how. What really stands out to me is that the current owner used to daily drive this Nova, and they say it never let them down once. That's a strong testament to its reliability, which is crucial if you're considering this as a regular driver rather than just a weekend cruiser. At $3,200 or best offer, this Nova could be a great entry point into classic car ownership. It's not perfect, and it's not trying to be, but for someone looking for a piece of automotive history that they can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank, this 1975 Chevy Nova could be just the ticket. It's a honest, straightforward classic that's ready for its next adventure. What do you think? Could you see yourself cruising around in this piece of American automotive history? 16. We're taking a look at a real piece of American luxury, a 1977 Lincoln Continental Mark V that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $7,500. This isn't just any old car. We're talking about a true icon of 70s automotive opulence. This particular Mark V is a coupe model, sporting that classic long, sleek body with sharp, angular lines that just screams late 70s style. It's powered by a V8 engine, likely the standard 400 cubic inch, 6.6L power plant, though it could be the optional 460 7.5L. Either way, you're getting that smooth, effortless power delivery these luxury barges are known for. The seller notes it's got 85,000 miles on the clock, which isn't bad at all for a car of this vintage. It's rear-wheel drive, of course, with an automatic transmission for that true luxury cruising experience. The exterior is finished in white, which really shows off those crisp body lines and that distinctive Continental spare tire hump on the trunk. Now, the seller describes the condition as good and mentions it's original, which is always a plus for collectors. It's got a clean title too, so no worries there. However, I do want to be upfront. At this price point and age, it's likely not in showroom condition. These old luxury cars can hide issues, so a thorough inspection would be wise. Inside, you can expect that opulent 70s interior with plush seating, probably in leather or velour, and plenty of wood grain accents. Features like power windows, seats, and mirrors were standard, so those should all be present. Look, this Mark V isn't going to win any fuel efficiency awards with its thirsty V8, but that's not why you buy a car like this. You buy it for the presence, the comfort, and the pure, unadulterated American luxury experience of the 1970s. At $7,500, it could be a great entry point into classic luxury car ownership for someone willing to put in a bit of TLC. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard in this land yacht, turning heads and reliving the days when bigger truly was better in the automotive world. What do you think? Is this Lincoln Continental Mark V calling your name? 17. We've got a real gem to talk about today. We're looking at a 1984 Cadillac Eldorado convertible that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $14,500. Now, let me tell you, this isn't your average 80s ride. This is a true head-turner that's been pampered its entire life. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and based on the details provided, I'm inclined to believe them. This Eldorado has only 47,000 miles on the clock, which is incredibly low for a car pushing 40 years old. It's a West Coast car that's never seen rain or snow, which explains why it's in such great shape. No rust worries here, folks. Under the hood, we've got the 4.1-liter V8 engine, which might not be the most powerful Cadillac ever made, but it's plenty smooth for cruising in style. And speaking of style, this Eldorado is dressed in an eye-catching red paint that's sure to grab attention wherever it goes. Now, here's something interesting. This Eldorado is front-wheel drive. Cadillac was pretty innovative with this setup, and it gives the car a unique driving feel compared to other luxury cars of the era. It's paired with an automatic transmission, as you'd expect in a luxury Caddy. The seller emphasizes that everything works as it should, which is a big deal for a car of this vintage. No fiddling with finicky electronics or troublesome mechanicals here. Just turn the key and enjoy the ride. But the real kicker? It's a convertible. There's nothing quite like cruising with the top down in a classic Cadillac. It's the perfect way to soak up the sun and show off this beautiful piece of American luxury. At $14,500, this isn't a bargain basement find, but considering its condition, low mileage, and the fact that it's a convertible, the price seems fair for what you're getting. This Eldorado is more than just a car. It's a conversation piece, a showpiece, and a time machine all rolled into one. So, if you're in the market for a classic luxury convertible that's been meticulously maintained and is ready to hit the streets, this 1984 Cadillac Eldorado could be your ticket to ride. Just be prepared for lots of waves, thumbs ups, and "what year is that?" questions at every stoplight. Now, who's ready to cruise in Cadillac style? 18. We're diving into a real piece of American luxury, a 1970 Cadillac Cal that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $7,500. Now let me tell you, this isn't just any old Caddy. We're talking about a well-preserved slice of automotive history that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, and with only 49,000 original miles on the clock, I'm inclined to believe them. That's incredibly low mileage for a car that's over half a century old. The blue paint gives it that classic stately look that Cadillacs are known for. Under the hood, we've got the beast of an engine, the 472 cubic inch V8. This power plant was known for its smooth operation and enough torque to move mountains. It's paired with an automatic transmission, of course, because this is a Cadillac we're talking about. And being a 70 model, it's got that classic rear-wheel drive setup that gives it that quintessential American luxury car feel. Now let's talk features. The seller mentions that everything works, which is a big deal for a car of this vintage. You've got power windows, power seats, and air conditioning, all the luxuries you'd expect from a Cadillac. The interior is described as nice, which is great news considering how difficult it can be to find good interiors in cars this old. One of the best things about this Calais is that the registration is up to date. That means you can buy it and drive it home without any immediate headaches at the DMV. It's got a clean title too, which is always reassuring. The Calais was Cadillac's entry-level full-size model in 1970, but don't let that fool you. It's still pure Cadillac luxury through and through. It might not have all the bells and whistles of the top-tier models, but it's got plenty of style and comfort to spare. At $7,500, this Cadillac Calais represents a relatively affordable entry into classic Cadillac ownership. It's not a perfect show car, but it sounds like a solid driver that you could enjoy right away while gradually restoring it to its former glory. So, if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank, this 1970 Cadillac Calais could be just the ticket. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard in this land yacht, turning heads and reliving the days when American luxury cars ruled the roads. Who's ready to live the Cadillac lifestyle? 19. We're taking a look at a real gem from the muscle car era. A 1966 Plymouth Belvedere 2 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $11,500. Now let me tell you, this isn't just any old Plymouth. We're talking about a one-owner, all-original piece of American automotive history that's been lovingly cared for over the decades. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes this Belvedere 2 as having a clean body with no rust, which is pretty impressive for a car that's pushing 60 years old. It's still wearing its original paint, which speaks volumes about how well it's been maintained. Being a garage-kept car, it's been protected from the elements all these years. Under the hood, we've got a V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, a classic combination for smooth cruising and plenty of power when you need it. The seller mentions that it runs and drives, which is always good news for a classic like this. They've also noted that it has an exhaust system, so you can expect that sweet V8 rumble when you fire it up. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This Belvedere 2 has only 30,000 miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low mileage for a car of this age, which explains why it's in such good shape. It's practically a time capsule. The car comes equipped with power steering, which makes it much easier to handle than some of its non-assisted contemporaries. It's also an air-conditioned car, which was a pretty fancy option back in '66, and makes it much more comfortable for cruising in modern times. One of the best things about this Belvedere 2 is that it's all original. In the world of classic cars, originality is king, and this Plymouth has it in spades. The seller even mentions that they have the original wheels, which is a nice touch for the purists out there. At $11,500, this 1966 Plymouth Belvedere 2 represents a solid entry into classic muscle car ownership. It's not the most valuable or sought-after model from the era, but its originality, condition, and low mileage make it a very attractive option for collectors and enthusiasts alike. So, if you're in the market for a classic American muscle car that you can actually drive and enjoy without worrying about ruining a perfect restoration, this Plymouth could be just the ticket. Imagine cruising down the boulevard in this beauty, turning heads and reliving the glory days of American muscle. Who's ready to step back in time with this '66 Belvedere 2? 20. We're looking at a 1978 Chevrolet El Camino that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $15,000. Now, let me tell you, this isn't your average El Camino. This is a meticulously customized beauty that's ready to turn heads at any car show. Let's start with the exterior. The seller describes it as 99.9% perfect, which is about as close to flawless as you can get with a classic car. It's sporting a glossy black paint job that's described as flawless. Clearly, this El Camino has been pampered. The bodywork was done by a pro with 40 years of experience, so you know it's top-notch. They've made some cool custom touches too, like a custom tailgate, rear bumper delete with a roll pan, and a gas cap door delete for that smooth, clean look. Under the hood, we've got a fresh 4.3L V6 engine with a 4-barrel carb and headers. It's paired with a custom-built automatic transmission. The exhaust system features a Punk's muffler, which I'm betting gives this El Camino a sweet, throaty rumble. Step inside, and you're greeted by an interior that's described as being in perfect condition. The custom soft leather bench seat sounds particularly inviting, perfect for cruising in comfort and style. Now, here's the kicker. This El Camino is described as immaculate and garage-kept. The seller says it needs absolutely nothing to be entered in shows and is ready to cruise. That's music to any classic car enthusiast's ears. At $15,000, this isn't a budget beater. It's a premium, show-ready custom classic. But considering the amount of work that's gone into it and its apparently excellent condition, it could be a great value for someone looking for a standout El Camino. So, if you're in the market for a classic car that combines the style of a 70s coupe with the practicality of a pickup, and you want something that's ready to show or cruise right away, this 1978 Chevy El Camino could be your dream ride. Just imagine pulling up to a car show or cruise night in this beauty. You'd be the talk of the town. Who's ready to rock this custom El Camino?